Today, we're looking at Atramentis Pine Green. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, Atramentis Pine Green is a green ink. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I put the ink into a different pen for a day. I then put it into a Pilot Metropolitan with a medium nib to take my notes for this video. Now, before we get to the writing samples, let's look at the sciencey bits. Up first is the chromatography, and I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And what we see is this gray line across the bottom, and I see this a lot with the Atramentis, the use of this gray that gives a little bit of permanence to that part of the ink. But that gray line across the bottom is very there. It pushes up as a light gray, and then we see the green. Feel like they're using gray to darken up some of their inks and to help them have some shading and a little bit of resistance. The one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. Now that gray line across the bottom is very thick, very dark, and very there, and not a lot of that gray is pushing up out from the water, just a little bit of it. The green is just across the top, about the same amount of green as there was in the original chromatography. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pen. Now I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it handles it very well. The green component of the H did, or on that lowercase h, did kind of, I don't want to say it bloomed, but it became a medium in a particular part on the hump. It's only the green part that is moving. But it was only the green part that was moving in the chromatography after 10 minutes. Regardless, I think I can feel safe using this in a note-taking situation. Water only lifted the green off of the page. It really left all of that gray very dark, very there. Water's not going to be enough. Now, Pen Flush did a bit more than water did. It did start getting all of the green off. It did start getting a bunch of the gray off, but not all of the gray. There's still a lot of light gray left behind. 1/3 bleach solution is completely removing it from the page, leaving a little bit of a yellow staining, but that's more how it's reacting with the paper. But it may take the use of the 1/3 bleach solution to get this out of your pen, and if it does, you use it and then immediately wash it out. Don't rust your metal parts. For the inks I've tested, I've found an average viscosity of 2.5, with a realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. The Atramentis Pine Green has a viscosity of 2.62, making it normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper with the extra fine and medium nib. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. The Atramentis Pine Green has an average dry time of 15 seconds, making it again normal. Now let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form. There we go. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairefontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and it offers some very nice shading throughout, like the DE is darker than the A, and the A starts lighter and it works its way to darker in the Atramentis. So it gives very nice shading up there, not as much as we can see in some of the other writing. The extra fine is a noticeably lighter tone. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and it offers very nice shading throughout. Like in the, it starts light and works its way dark. Quick starts light and works its way dark. Brown starts dark and works its way light and then becomes very dark again at the brown. So we get some very nice shading here. Wow. Flare. There we go. Don't know what happened to the white balance on that. 10 seconds to dry. Now the medium is a noticeably darker tone. It is just a
shade lighter than we see with the 1.1. The medium has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and it does offer some very nice shading throughout. Like when we look at quick, it starts dark, gets light, and then at the eye starts getting very dark again. Brown starts dark and gets light. Fox starts light and gets dark. Very nice. 16 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both shows plenty of color variation, and we got that in the writing sample. And the smear test, you could likely recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Tomoe River. We get no bleeding. We get ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and no shade. It's lost on this. The extra fine is a noticeably lighter tone with no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and no shade. 14 seconds to dry. The medium is darker than the extra fine, but not as dark as the 1.1. The medium has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and no shade. It took 21 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it, we didn't get it, and the smear test, I don't think you could. There's the off chance of maybe. Because I do very faintly see some of the lines there, but I don't think on the majority you would be able to recover if you smeared while you were writing. Rhodia. Rhodia has no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and we get no shading. No shading with the 1.1 on Rhodia, but the extra fine, its base tone is a much lighter tone than we got with the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and it offers some very nice shading throughout. Not as much as we saw with the Clairefontaine. Like the starts very light and becomes very dark at the H and stays dark. Quick starts as a mid-tone and gets to be much darker. Brown starts very dark and works to a mid-tone. Fox starts nice and light and works its way dark. It's very nice shading in this. 11 seconds to dry. The medium is a darker tone than the than the extra fine. Not quite as dark as the 1.1. The medium has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and it offers some very nice shading. Like the starts very light and gets dark. Quick is a very dark word all the way through. Over starts light and works its way darker. The starts very light and works its way much darker. 16 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of both show us some color variation. The medium doesn't show nearly as much, but we didn't get nearly as much up here. Extra fine shows a lot, and we did get a lot. And the smear test, I believe you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Life paper. Life paper has no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and no shade comes through here. None whatsoever. The extra fine is a noticeably lighter tone with no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and it does offer some shading. Like on the starts light and gets dark. Quick starts dark, becomes lighter, gets darker again. So very nice shading. Same happens with Fox. Dark to light to dark again. 8 seconds to dry. Now the medium is a noticeably darker tone. It's actually as dark as the 1.1. The medium has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and no shade here. I think that's a result of the different tone background. It took 12 seconds to dry. When we look at the scrubby for both, the extra fine shows us some color variation, and we got that up here. The medium shows us none, and we didn't get any. But the smear test, you could probably, almost guaranteed, recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Levenger paper. Levenger gives us no bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade whatsoever. The extra fine is a noticeably lighter tone with no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and no shade. It starts light, works its way dark, and it does that in a lot of words. It did it in the, it did it in quick. Brown, it worked backwards, dark to light. Jumps, starts light and gets dark. Over, light to dark. The's very dark. All the way through. Dog starts light and becomes dark very quick and stays dark. 6 seconds to dry. The medium is a darker tone, the same tone we got with the 1.1. The medium has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shading. 8 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine shows us some color variation. We got color variation. The medium shows us a little bit, but we didn't get any in the writing sample. And the smear test, you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Let me get Franklin Christoph paper. It has no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a noticeably lighter tone with no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade. 4 seconds to dry. The medium gets to be the dark tone that we saw with the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. It took 6 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it and we didn't get it. And the smear test, you could definitely recover this if you smeared while you were writing. And that is all that I have for the writing scene.
Instead of finding inks that look like the Atramentis Pine Green, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I wanted a nice red, and I went with Robert Oster's Rubine, because it is a nice red. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Atramentis Pine Green? I think it is another one of Atramentis inks that is named perfectly. I grew up in New Jersey and this looks just like the pine trees that we had there. It is fantastic. I can practically smell them seeing this ink on the page. It shades well. I like greens because they shade very well and there's a lot of great greens to choose from. This is a great green to add into that list. It is worth trying in a sample. Thanks for watching.